Let's talk about Chiron. Now, in Sidereal astrology, which is astronomically correct, if we were to look up in the sky and we had my telescope, we would be able to see Chiron entering the Aries constellation this weekend. Now, although in tropical astrology or Western astrology, there's a lot of talk of Chiron already being in Aries, and that's because it's a slightly different hypothesis. It's not based on the actual placement in the night sky, it's based off the equinoxes. So, what I'm doing here is we're looking at sidereal or astronomically correct astrology, and we're going to talk about Chiron. Now, Chiron isn't mentioned at all really in Vedic astrology, which uses sidereal as well. And so this is really an amalgamation of a very important aspect that's looked at in Western astrology, but we're going to look at it in terms of its spiritual placement. It's like almost neo-Vedic. So Chiron moves into Aries on the 3rd of May 2025, and he will be in Aries until the 29th of June 2032. It's a long period. He is an asteroid that sits between Saturn and Uranus. So Saturn is the furthest planet out that we can see with the naked eye. And Uranus, as we jump to Uranus, we're really dealing with transpersonal energy, generational energy, and things that affect the collective. It's not just about personal karma. This will have big implications upon collective healing, the collective wound we all hold, because as we learn about the Chiron myth, we'll see just how common that wounding is within all of us. Now, Chiron is called the wounded healer. That's probably how most people refer to him in mythology or in astrology. And the idea with Chiron is he holds both our greatest wounding or pain, which for all of us stems from a sense of abandonment. Now, that abandonment wound shows up in different ways depending on his natal sign in our chart, which you can look at your own chart to find out, and also where he's transiting. So, that wounding feels very individual, even though we all share it, which is that transpersonal energy. It's a collective wounding that expresses itself in individual ways. Like that wounding for some people will be around the father, for other people, it will be around the mother. For some people, it will be around their intuition and that kind of like witch wound. Um, for others, it can be around power and control and figures of authority. So it changes. Now, the thing with this wounding and this sense of abandonment, and why Chiron is the wounded healer, is in this life, we are not here to heal that wound. Rather, we're here to use that wounding to step further into our divinity and into our own healing abilities, to kind of realize that we're the one to here to heal ourselves. Now, whenever I think of Chiron, I always think of the Rumi poem, or the line from the Rumi poem, the wound is where the light enters. And if you were to summarize Chiron in a sentence, that would be it. So, although there can be suffering with that wounding, it it cracks us open to the light that lives within. Now, Chiron takes about 50 years, give or take, to go around the zodiacal constellations, and his orbit is uneven. So it's not a perfect circle. He spends like a longer time in some signs and a shorter time in others, which I feel like gives us an idea of like where we need more of his energy and where we need less of his energy. So for instance, he is coming out of Pisces, and he's been in Pisces on and off since 2016. So he spent about 9 years in that sign. So if you have Chiron in that sign, that means that you're going through your Chiron returns. Um, that is a really big period for you, and there can be a lot of ancestral healing that was taking place, because Pisces is about intuition, ancestry, kind of witch energy. Um, but then he zooms through other signs. So if you have Chiron in Leo, he only takes 2 years to go through Leo, which says that like he doesn't need as much time to work with that wounding in that position. Um, and it's interesting, right? Because like we're coming out of a collective period of having Chiron in Pisces, and Pisces is about spirituality. It's also about the wounding at the deepest level we hold with the divine, the sense of emptiness, or I'm sure we all know what that feeling is, like that God-sized hole that lives within us that we can never satisfy with the material realm, but we try to. That is very much like Chiron in Pisces. And it's also the energy of like the sense that you've almost been left on this planet, or you're somehow separate from God, like the divine is somehow outside of you. And this is a wounding that shows up very prominently in monotheistic religion. Now, as he moves into Aries, he's going to be in Aries for 8 years, which says that Aries is also a really important energy. We're dealing with something really fundamental that we need to learn about. We're not healing per se, we're learning about who we are. And I'll talk about what Chiron in Aries means in a little bit. Now, as a side note, the biggest Chiron transit personally any of us will go through is when we have our Chiron returns. It happens once or twice in our lifetimes, depending. And it will happen in generally because it doesn't have a consistent orbit around the zodiacal belt. It will change in timing when it happens for different people, but generally it's like late 40s to mid to late 50s is when we have our Chiron returns. And what's really beautiful in women, this will align with the shift into menopause. And it makes sense because Chiron is about the wounding that we hold. And we need almost to have had that experience, like to get to that age where we have enough life experience to work with the wound, to use the wound to crack us open to the wisdom we're then there to share as we enter that crone stage of life. Now, the same applies for men. The thing is with men or um, males is that they don't have the biological transition that the female body undergoes. And so it's something that needs to be known and worked with in order to move to that stage. And it's almost like moving out of the energy of being a father to an elder. And I have to, my sense is like that energy, that crone, elder, wild man, wild woman energy is needed so much right now in this society. Because this society, it's spoken a lot by mythologists as being like a sibling society where no one is holding the wisdom that would have been passed down in indigenous cultures or like our ancestors would have had. It exists sparsely. And we need that at the moment. You can feel it in the political landscape. You can feel it in corporations and the way we run business and the way we think about the earth. There's no one handing down that wisdom. Instead, that crone or that elder energy is kind of relegated to a separate part of society and kind of like for someone else to deal with. I do feel like that's changing because there are a lot of individuals that are reclaiming that stage in life. And instead of falling into the loop of pop culture where it's about like being young and looking young and like dyeing your hair and not having wrinkles and like not showing your age and then not expressing your wisdom, there's kind of like a slow tide that's turning against that, where it's like aging as wisdom, as something that has been afforded to you as a gift. And then the ability to express that wisdom to others, be that to grandchildren, to younger people in the population, to children. It's we really need it. So just know if you are going through menopause, premenopause, postmenopausal, or kind of you're heading into that, you will be heading into that Chiron transit. Now, who is Chiron? Um, Chiron is not a celestial body that's given a lot of focus in traditional or Vedic astrology. He was only recently discovered as of November the 1st, 1997, which is pretty recent compared to astrological knowledge. So he's a really new addition to the chart, and his position is important because like I said before, he kind of sits between Saturn, who can be seen, and Uranus, who can't be seen. So we're entering the realm of the unknown, the metaphysical. Um, and it's almost like we're entering a new realm when we start to work with Chiron. Now, like I'll repeat myself a couple of times during this video, but he is our greatest wounding. He is also our greatest ability to heal ourselves. It is not our job to heal anyone else, but we can create the space for them to heal, which is what he teaches us. If we know our wounding, we can stop projecting it onto the world, which has a huge ripple effect upon the world. Now, let's talk about the Chiron myth. So, in Greek mythology, Chiron was a centaur. Sometimes people get confused with the Sagittarius constellation being Chiron. It's actually not. That's a centaur, yes, but Chiron was a specific centaur that was revered in Greek mythology, half man, half horse. And he was the son of the Titan Kronos, and Kronos is often associated with Saturn in astrology, so it's kind of cool that he's like the next energy out. And Kronos took the form of a horse when he lay with the ocean nymph Phalra. And so she fell pregnant upon seeing her son, who became a centaur because his father took the form of a horse when he impregnated the ocean nymph. Um, she saw that he was a centaur and was shocked. So the mother was shocked by the child that she had born and so disgusted with him that she abandoned her son. Kronos did the same, didn't want anything to do with him, and he rejected him. So now we start. This mythology is literally saying the abandonment of the mother and the abandonment of the father creates the Chiron wounding. We have that abandonment wound sitting on both sides. And I remember hearing someone tell me something, and it was like, it's always the parent that you think you don't have the wounding with that you come to realize you have the biggest wounding with. And that's something beautiful just to contemplate, to test if that's true for you, to entertain. Now, Chiron was then adopted by Apollo, who is the sun god. And he taught him everything. And so Chiron then became renowned for his skills in healing, which was medicine, prophecy, astrology, botany, the science of herbs and medicine. And he mastered these skills, and the mythology kind of says like he mastered these skills as a means to overcompensate for the rejection that he was given by his parents. So that rejection by the mother and father created a drive to know, to learn, and almost to prove that he was worthy. And I think we've all done that, right? We've felt the rejection and then we've pushed against that rejection by either rebelling against the parents, needing to like feeling a drive in life to prove that we're better or to prove that they were wrong. And it pushes us into mastery, which is what happens with Chiron. And so it's almost this thing of like like a lot of mythology talks about the fact that Chiron was so masterful of the healing arts that he taught the gods' children. Now, what happened next in the mythology is he essentially Prometheus, if we remember the mythology of Prometheus, he brought fire to the earth and then he was punished for it. And Chiron was immortal at the time, and he saved Prometheus by saying to Zeus, I want to give Prometheus my immortality, um, so that he can live. And this is another thing, like the selfless service that also lives within Chiron, the way in which he is able to give a part of himself to save someone else, which we can do in toxic and very healed ways with the Chiron wounding. So then he entered eternity. He was thrown up onto the sky, and he became the constellation Centauri, not Sagittarius, but also he's labeled after the asteroid. Now, what's the significance of Chiron? Chiron is going to show us where we hold our rejection, where we hold, like similar to what Chiron went through, because every myth is a metaphor for something about what we experience. And so here we're learning, like, where do I hold abandonment in my life? And abandonment is really about separation from truth. So that can be like an ancestral abandonment that you're carrying through your lineage. Maybe your grandparent was adopted and there was an abandonment wound that developed there, and then you carry that karmic seed on, even though your life is relatively fine. We will generally have an abandonment wound sitting with both our parents, though one will be stronger than the other, and then that gets passed on to our children, or the children that we care for. Um, One of the ways that Chiron, I feel like, shows up really, really strongly as a unhealed archetype is when we want to heal everyone else instead of healing ourselves. Like, we'll go about learning everything we can about a certain modality with this kind of very righteous aim of wanting to heal the world and wanting to help, and it's almost like a means to control the people around us. And what Chiron will teach us in that situation is, like, you can only heal yourself. So what we can do is we can know where that wounding lives within us. We can look at our astrology chart, and see where Chiron lies and work with that. I'll quickly mention I'm going to be running a Chiron sacred circle where we will be working directly with the wounding in the chart as well as its healing capabilities. So if that's something that you feel called to already through this video to work with, check out the link below. It will be a very small circle. I'm really excited for it. But if that doesn't really sing to you, get onto astro.com or astroseek.com, look up your chart if you don't already have it, and look where Chiron is, what sign it is in, and like just Google, learn about the sign, learn about what that's telling you, learn about that wounding, and like the cosmic energy is already in you. So like seek the answer within. Now, what is Chiron in Aries all about? Okay, it's about personal will, it's about drive, it's about physical healing because Aries rules the body. It's about the relationship and healing the relationship we have to the body, kind of understanding that the body's actually perfect for the karma that we have to experience. It's also about healing around our direction in life. Now, Aries is the ruler of the first house in astrology. It is also the first sign. So, what does this mean? It means that we are entering a new collective 50-year cycle around this wounded healer archetype. There is new energy coming on board. There is a sense like we're just opening a new chapter as a collective in how we think about healing. And that can be in like medicine and with doctors and with how we prescribe healing to the people around us. But at a personal level, it can feel like we're starting something new in our own healing journey. Now, the first house rules our identity, our ego, how we see ourselves. It also rules our direction and drive. So I would be expecting like really big themes that come up can be actually like physical healing. If there's something you know you've needed to heal within your body in like a very tangible or material way, you can find that there is hints or new technology or new healers that you can work with to help you with that. Now, at a deeper psychological level, we all have a bit of there's a wounding we all hold around the body that we're in. It's not perfect enough. It should look a different way. It should act a different way. If my personality was a little bit different, maybe this would happen. And it's about finding compassion and understanding in where that tension is coming from. Like, who told you that? Where did it start? And how it can be healed through listening and having compassion for what the ego has to say about the body. Even the idea, like maybe some of us feel like I don't even belong in a body, like it feels weird to be in a human body. Okay, but like how can we get comfortable with that? How can we see that that tension is actually something that is going to help us come into deeper connection with the divine? And it's really cool as well because I feel like in a lot of monotheistic religion, the body is almost seen as an obstacle to God, an obstacle to the divine. And for me, this really feels like it's about understanding that the body is divine, that the mind is also divine, that the way you look is divine. And so I'm kind of hoping that there'll be like a new chapter that opens over the coming 8 years where maybe there's more acceptance at a collective level around the body, more acceptance also around the direction, like the way in which we're motivated in life. So, this is one thing I would really be watching for with Chiron in Aries is noticing where we're being driven. And I always call it like dirty fuel, where we're being driven by dirty fuel. So that dirty fuel is the abandonment wounding. So to that point about Chiron needing to learn everything about the healing arts, where are you being driven to do something by a need to prove yourself to other people, by a need to make yourself right and someone else wrong? And there's nothing like dirty fuel is fine. We actually get really, really far in life on it. The problem is it costs us something, and often the body is the part of us that takes that toll. So just considering like, is it coming from like, I have to, I need to, almost like I think we all know like that dirty fuel feeling, which is like, it's like an unnatural motivation, a really strong fire, and it's really focused on the external world. Or am I able to, while Chiron is in Aries, find peace that I'm exactly where I need to be, to not push against the circumstances, but to work with them? And even to find fulfillment in your drive within. Like other people might not know what you're doing, or you might find that people tell you like you should be doing this, or you need to try harder, or you need to earn more money, but it's like, what, but from within, does that make sense? Does that ring true? So a couple of key chapters that I'm looking for with Chiron and Aries relate to the Nakshatras. Now, Chiron is going to move through three Nakshatras, Ashwini, which is very auspicious, which will be from the 3rd of May to the 31st of October. 2025. No, yeah, 2025. He's then in Bharani, from 2026 to 2032. He's then in Kritika 2032 to the end of 2032. So May 2022 to June 2032. Now, I just want to focus on Ashwini. It's the first nakshatra. It's really auspicious because Ashwini is the two horse twins, the Ashwini Kumara, which is a lot like Chiron. And it represents that first 13.5 degrees of Aries. It says to me that this period, particularly from the 3rd of May to the 31st of October, that's when we're going to get our first shot of Ashwini energy. We will then come back in 2026 to 2029. It feels like this is going to be like huge advances in how we care and look after the body, and new healing practices, and almost the old healing practices becoming more mainstream. And I say that because the Ashwini Kumara are associated with Ayurveda, the system of medicine used in India. And we might find that there's more indigenous healing systems that become more mainstream, that become used by more of us to understand our body. And it can also be a period of time where we're actually dealing with taking a new step on our healing journey, or even starting a healing journey. Um, there can be cures for diseases we never thought we'd be able to look after. There can be the ability to also move at pace with life, to embrace life in a new way. So, like I said, midway through this video, I'm going to be running a Chiron Sacred Circle. It's called the Wounded Healer. It will be across 3 weekends in June. If you want to join live or on replay, it's a place to really not just look at the theory, because we won't really be going into the theory of Chiron. We'll be going into the felt expression and working in healing with the energy of Chiron in Aries, particularly while it's with Ashwini, like while it's with the Ashwini twins, who are the cosmic healers. I feel like there's huge potential to understand that wounding, to really understand the connection to the divine within as a beautiful place to spend the coming 8 years.